All right, what is up, everyone? Hopefully, you're all doing amazing. If you're with me, just give me a hell yeah in the chat. Let me know who's here so I can see who's joined me for the broadcast and who's ready to take over the world. If you have questions along the way, drop those in the chat. If you want me to look at a specific token, coin, stock, whatever, drop that in the chat too, and I'll take a look and give my thoughts on it. Remember, this isn't financial advice. I'm just some dude on the internet giving some of my own thoughts, and these thoughts are my own and no one else's. But without further ado, we got some people watching. Let's fire up the chat. Let me see in the chat who's here. If you're here and you're watching and you're paying attention and you can see my screen, just comment hell yeah in the comments or just comment, yeah, let's do this. All right. So just to start, let's take a look at CoinMarketCap. We can see the fear and greed index is down. Like last week, I think I did this. We were in 75. So after the ETF came about, people were like, oh, I guess there's no pump. So they start getting bearish and then Bitcoin starts dumping, they get more bearish. And so that greed index starts to go down. So instead of the higher extreme greed level, we're sitting here in just greed, which is good because as we get further and further down, we get more opportunities to buy the dip. We get more opportunities to flush out the heavy longs and stuff like that. And then we start pushing back up. So this is a pretty good indicator of market sentiment. I like using it quite a bit. And it tells me right now, because we were about right here last week, and now we're here with only a week, that's actually a pretty big gap. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we can go from here to here and then push straight back up into euphoria sometime down the cycle. But things that I think have been going really well when we look at trending, Celestia is just, it's been on a tear. Everybody's staking it to try to get the airdrop rewards. Solana started pushing pretty hard. We had JTO actually have a pretty good pump. Pyth started coming back up from the dead. So it was good to see a lot of the Solana ecosystem coins start to do well. When we look at the list, you can see like Pyth up 40% in 7 days, JTO 69% in 7 days. So the Solana smaller caps and ecosystem coins got a really big push, like Dog with Hat, Whiff up 179%, Honey 50%. I mean, things are looking good. Myro 108%. Even the Solana shit coins are up. So shows that the Solana ecosystem was doing fairly well last week. I think the other ecosystem that did well, looking at inscriptions, pretty much these ones are all the ones that are doing quite well. Solana, inscriptions, gaming, DPIN. So it's kind of something to pay attention to. Kind of start coming in here and looking at, so we've got Ordi and Sats have always been the market leader. But then when we come down, we've got Multibit, and you can start spotting some of the other ones like Rats that are doing quite well. BTCS, BTCs. You've got Bank. So you can start to see some of these smaller caps, these tiny caps that are doing well. So when you see the market leaders doing well, you can kind of scroll down and see what else is doing well. But it seems like these are always like the top: Solana, inscriptions, gaming. So you always have Immutable X at the top, Axie, it surpassed Sandbox. Overall, though, it seems like Solana had probably the biggest moves. I think Zai, however you say this, did pretty well. Yield Guild Games seemed to have a pretty good drive. Ace started moving quite well. So a lot of the gaming ecosystem tokens starting to push back up as well because everything kind of works in a rotation. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Yeah, let's do this. Got some dudes in here commenting now. That's what I like to see. So let's come in here and take a look at some of the charts. We'll do an overall market update. Pretty much the same thesis from what I shared in dudes on Bitcoin, but we're right here. Let's go to the Coinbase chart. So we're kind of in the Coinbase chart, or this is the Coinbase chart where we're pretty much at, in my opinion. We had the ETF thing, the whole ETF fiasco, aka disaster, and then Grandpa Gary Gensler got real mad and butthurt when we got approved, but we pushed, and then obviously we pushed straight back down. There's been a lot of sell pressure. We were able to bounce a little bit. And like I said, what I would anticipate for us to see would be a revenge push, which we're doing. I started talking about the revenge push a couple days ago, but I saw, or actually back here is when I talked about it, because we closed the daily below this RSI on the 50 level, which if you kind of look at the chart here, we haven't closed below that since October 10th. And then that was actually a pretty good picture over here. So we came up, we closed below, we stayed under for a few days, and then we had a revenge push that actually pushed us back up to this level. So that actually launched us. And then we technically peaked at the RSI back here in October 25th. And ever since then, we've just been putting in We've had a reset here, didn't touch, hit the 50, didn't go below, came above here, but nothing's really kind of hit that peak. So we've just kind of been on the way down on the RSI, which is a sort of a bearish divergence in comparison to where the actual chart looks like it's moving. So that gives us an indicator that we're kind of running out of steam. So anyway, what I was kind of anticipating for this is a revenge push. So I started talking about the revenge pump here when we actually hit this, and I saw the RSI close below, and then we bounced. We actually hit a bounce here. Now this is the revenge push. So we're starting to push back up. What I would anticipate happens, not just going to reject off the 50 and immediately go straight down. What I would anticipate happens is we push through, and then we come back down, and then we fall through, and then we push, and then we really fall through. So that takes us out to like, even in my chart, you can see here, January 29th, if that happens. So it comes up, comes down, bounces, falls through, revenge push again, rejection, fall. So that's kind of the length of time that I would anticipate of a rejection like this happening. Like end of January, we really start to see it. And then, like I said, that puts us in a place, if we do reject off there, we're going to be like here where I kind of set the longs and dudes, and it pushes to here. And then we kind of squiggle around, and then we push to here, and then we push back up, and then we fall back down, fall through, and that puts us out here. So like bottoming somewhere mid-February-ish is what I would anticipate, and is what I would anticipate. The other thing that tells me that that's probably a viable thing is you can see the awesome oscillator here has actually turned, it's flipped. So it's flipped negative. So when we look at our points of confluence, number one, we've lost the daily trend here, the EMA 13 and 21. Number two, we've fallen below the 50 in the RSI. So now for another point of confluence, we need to see this RSI reject and fall back through. And then this AO already flipping negative kind of tells us that we're in a position to move down. Now, obviously, everything we could just be like, whoop, and then just turbo pump to who knows what. If we did that, I would anticipate it would look like this. It would go boop and then push. And I think that would put us in a zone where we bounce off the daily, push back up here, and then probably go higher. Obviously, that's something that could happen. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but you can't discount every scenario. You kind of have to remove your emotions from the equation and just look at what's happening. So below 50, flip negative, below the daily, things that would make this bullish, above the daily, hold the daily, above the 50, hold the 50, and then the AO flipping back up to positive. So this going from down here to flipping back above. So let me know if there's any questions on that in the chat. Let me check the chat. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so then anticipating that, what I was kind of looking at was ETH potentially putting in like a revenge or an actual ETH long that makes sense. So ETH is in a much better position on the daily. When we look at ETH, we've kind of been wearing out, but we've had a nice little reset. ETH is starting to push back up. ETH is not below the 50 on the daily. ETH's AO is not below and has not flipped negative. So it tells me that if Bitcoin goes on this revenge push and Bitcoin pushes and then it goes sideways and then finally rejects, that tells me that ETH could potentially have its push until like, we're looking at like mid-February, like when Bitcoin really starts going. When Bitcoin dies, then everything dies. But until like January 30th, maybe the first week of February, it could be the potential for ETH to finally have its day in the limelight. And so what I would be looking at with that, like I've been saying, and we had a pretty good day today with ETH, but what I've been saying is I would like to see ETH, ideally, ETH pushing somewhere around like 3,200, I think would be ideal for an ETH. For an ETH push, because that puts us, we're past this kind of 27 zone, which is tough, this blocked zone here. And then that pushes us back up into this zone, 29.13, up until about 29.86. We clear that, then I anticipate that puts us up here in the 32.77 zone. And then beyond that's like 34. I would anticipate we probably don't get past this. There's just not enough time if Bitcoin is going to go on a dump. But overall, that's what I would be looking at for ETH. That's why I'm in a position to be kind of not anticipating, but in a position to be long on ETH. Like I have an ETH long and an ARB long right now that I've just been sitting on for a couple of weeks. So outside of that, when we come and look at my watch list, I stays kind of starting to break out of this trend. I think this is one to watch out for. So it's been stuck between like 74 and 66 for a while. You can see no real wicks have been closed below that, and then no real good wicks have been closed above. Finally, we closed one above though, and we're holding. So I think say if it can hold this candle, this is the daily, and it can come down and potentially retest and bounce, then it has a new range that it'll start forming, new range from here to wherever it goes. If it falls through, then it goes right back into range. But this would be pretty nice for it because it would be boop, or we close and we obviously come back up. Looks like we've got a little bit of room to the downside on the RSI. So I would anticipate it's like here, and then maybe we have another little push, and then kind of in the middle where it could go from here. But ideally, we want it to hold right above that 0.7487 zone because that's been the consolidation zone. And you'll find that that's pretty common with these coins. It's like move up, consolidate, move up, consolidate, and it'll just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again. He has been a monster like this entire bull run. It's an absolute beast. I pinged in dudes to buy that I was buying it right here. So, I mean, we got a pretty amazing position, somewhere around like $5.50, which was incredible. And now it's up here at $20. So for TIA, it's kind of starting to build this little channel here. RSI looks okay. It doesn't really matter with TIA. It just seems like it moons and then goes sideways. Same thing, consolidate trend. And you have the trend up, then a consolidation pattern. So same thing here. RSI kind of peaked up here. And then as the RSI was going down to touch that 50, it just went sideways. It didn't actually really go down. It had one wick down here to $9. Same thing will probably happen here. I think we've probably got one more leg in us. And then what'll happen is we probably trend sideways down to the 50 again, or Bitcoin dies and we get an amazing entry on TIA, which I'm kind of paying attention to pick more up. INJ is another one I'm watching. It's been in this consolidation pattern. So between like 36.8-ish and 42-ish. So if we can break that and hold, or just have a momentum candle that goes straight up, I think it's in a good spot. AO is just about neutral, which would be good. RSI has double bounced basically. So it looks like it's in a good position to begin another leg. ARB, like I said, I'm in as an ETH beta. I think this will be a good play if ETH does take off. ENS, let's see, another good. LDO is another good one. I think that would make sense. It has a nice bounce. See that perfect like little reset on the RSI here. I think that's great. I think that puts us in a really good position for LDO to make a move if ETH can sustain. If not, then it dies with everything else. Same thing with OP. It's been in this like trend, this consolidation pattern right here, like 344 up to 390. So if we can break that trend, and if ETH pushes, then I think it puts OP in a good position to really push again. SWE was another one. It had a consolidation and then a push, and now it's looking like it wants to start trending again. So we'll see where this takes us. Let's see, what coins do y'all want me to cover? Comment in the comments and I'll cover them. Let me know if this is valuable so far. If this is valuable, just drop valuable in the comments so I know that y'all like what I'm putting out and you're interested in this broadcast. Sol, pretty much same pattern. It's just trending down. Sol's come back down. It's finally touched the 50, double bounced off the 50, triple bounced off the 50. Maybe this is a reset here. Still in like a consolidation pattern. So we just kind of have to see where this plays out. I'm not sure if it's the best play right now, but if we could map it out, we're like here. Probably something like this. Sol hasn't really broken that in any reasonable way. So that's kind of what I would be looking at. So we need that fresh trend reset. We're sitting pretty close to that. And the AO is almost back to neutral. So that might be, Sol might be heating up. It might be in a good spot to make a run again. I think Link is trying to break out of its consolidation pattern. So Link's been stuck in this pattern for a while. These all do the same thing. But now look at Link. It's back above 50, probably going to retest the 50. If it can retest, and this AO is now starting to want to flip positive, that's point of confluence. And then if we can break this resistance, then that's point of confluence. It puts Link in a good position to have another leg. Link tends to have the longest consolidation patterns in the history of the world. It's the coin's maddening if you're trying to trade it sometimes because it had that first push from October from like $7 to the $16 zone. And then since November, it's just consolidated sideways. And so it's kind of, if it does reject off this 50, then I wouldn't even be surprised to see Link break through this and fall. So it's kind of something to pay attention to as well. Other coins, I called Blur. I said there was a really good consolidation pattern building up. So we had consolidation and then Blur. We did long it. I think we longed it to about, I can't remember. We had a great long in Blur, but you can see it. We came up, we didn't even retest, came back, had a sharp reset. And so Blur is now going to its new place. It's beyond the consolidation pattern now, and now it's currently trending. I think if we want positions in these coins and they're already trending, we want to look for like a 4-hour continuation. So that's even, look at that beautiful reset off the 4-hour here. But what I would be looking at is Blur coming up to like here. You kind of have to just eyeball this somewhere in that zone to like right here maybe would be like my buy zone 0.69, 0.6777. When it does come back up to retest this 4-hour, it's kind of what I would be shooting for. Same thing with like INJ. It hasn't really broke anything, so there's really no reason. I mean, a buy could be right here and a stop's just below this. But for me, it's kind of waiting for that break. And if there's momentum behind the break, it's just taking it. If it breaks and it comes back down and it sits sideways on the line for 10 hours, then it's probably not going to make sense. So it'd be like push through long right here and then set stop down here-ish. So that way we don't get stopped out on a retest. If it starts getting bearish in the retest, then obviously we don't want to be in it either. Same thing with ARB. It's actually not in a bad position. Like if I was going to take ARB, I would take it off of this compression of this 4-hour. So it pushed through and had a nice push there. Now we just have to hope that it can break through this resistance point at like 217, and then it probably gives it legs to start really motoring up again. When I look at LDO, my entry would be the same thing. 4-hour, it's already past the trend. That's kind of what I would be looking at. So now we either need to see it come straight back down and test. And the way LDO is, it's really hard to trade because of how volatile this thing moves. But it'll go straight up and then it'll all of a sudden just come straight back down and then push straight back up. It'll go straight red, straight green. So you have to be careful with this one. But that's why orders could probably be placed and filled like right here. And you could hit the straight down and then hit the straight up. You just have to be ready for extreme levels of volatility with that coin. OP, same thing. If I wanted an entry, it would be clearing kind of this gunk. Right now it's struggling right here, which could put it in a place where it rejects all the way back down. But the fact that we're over kind of the 4-hour trend is a good thing. And the RSI starting to cross over the 50. To be safe, we would wait for it to actually be above the 50 and hold. So we'll probably see that happen near when the daily trend comes about. Looks like SWE is retesting this 4-hour trend. So it's touched and pushed a few times. Now it's fallen through. Now it needs to either push back up or reject and fall. So right now, the good place to watch, the good zone to watch is this zone right here. So on that spot, let me see, any questions? Let's see. All right, let's see. We'll start with Zai, AI, and AVAX. So I think I was looking at AI over here. Basically, oh, I did. I even marked where I would like to see it go. So you can even see in this coin, it doesn't have a ton of data, but on the 4-hour, we can see it pushed and then it came back reset on this 4-hour. And that gave it the juice to push here, which it then got rejected. And now we're here. Kind of hard to tell. There's not a ton of data on this coin yet, but what we can see is there's clear resistance right here because it's a previous point, 1.39276. So we'd be looking for a push through with momentum and a hold above that on the 4-hour. And I think that would put this one in a good position to continue its leg. The buy zone for this one would have been right here. So we have this beautiful buy zone, 1.3470 to 1.26487. My stop would be like right here-ish, 1.22. But I think now the best solution would be to, like, we've got resistance, we've got this pocket of resistance. If it can push and show momentum above that, notice how every time it's pushed, it's this gigantic wick. That's not momentum. Momentum is pushing and like pushing hard straight through. So then we can catch the ride. A good trend break doesn't usually give us a chance for reentry. And you can see when it does start trending, the volume comes up. See how the volume's much higher here than it is like right over here or back here, or really anywhere else. So that's what I would be kind of looking at for that one. Let's see. So looking at this one, not a ton of data to read off of, but the buy zone on this one would have been right. It would have been this 4 hour trend. I really like buying off this because you get good bounces. I like to set either alerts or buy orders in this area because then you can, if it hits, you great. If it falls through, you hit, and then it usually gives a good bounce if it's a new trend, which this is. So right now, what I would be looking at for this is to revisit that zone and then hopefully get a good order in there. I mean, someone you could make an argument for just longing here, but there's a lot more room to like a good stop, like 0.84. So if you do get stopped, you get completely wrecked, which obviously we want to avoid. Looking at the RSI, I think it could probably reset back down to the 50 before it comes up on its next leg. So it had a good trend. It's new, so we don't really know. We don't have a ton of data, but it did have a good trend, which could make a case for a consolidation for just a bit. We could even come down to the 1 hour for this one. Yeah, so now we can see where it's getting rejected. Like we look at the 1 hour, notice how it's pushed to the 50 and then hasn't been able to clear it yet. So that's bearish for now. And then when you look at points of confluence for that, you've got the AO that's still negative, that hasn't flipped positive, which is what I would be looking for. And then the next point of confluence is the fact that it's below the trend. It's gotten pushed, rejected, pushed, rejected, pushed, rejected. So what I would be looking at for this, because we don't have a ton of data on the other time frames, is I'd be looking for when it actually clears and holds above this on the hourly. So we push above on the hourly, and that hourly can hold above that, because then what would happen? It would give the confluence for the RSI to be above 50. This AO would probably flip positive, and then that would put us in a really good place to catch the trend on the long. Let's see. AVAX. Okay, so AVAX. Kind of, it's just, this is the hourly. Let's check the daily to see. Oops. Okay, so when we see AVAX, it's just consolidating. Seems like whenever AVAX pushes, Sol pushes too, but it was sideways. We pushed, and then now we're starting to go down, and we've kind of leveled off. Now we're going sideways. So I think AVAX is in a similar position to where the RSI pushed above here, and then it got rejected off the 4 hour trend. So you can see how it fell through, and now it's just stuck under there. So for me, this wouldn't be a good trade until we can hold above this trend on the 4 hour, and we can see this RSI clear above this 50, and this AO flips positive. Those would give me points of confluence to take this and be confident in the trade. And the fact that we're looking at the daily right now, once these 3 points align, it should be good for a great trend for this thing to start pushing up significantly again. So that's what I would be looking for. The fact that this is on the daily, it would be a great swing trade when it does come about. I think it'll be beautiful. We just need to see it hold above. And so I think I said 4 hours a second ago. This needs to hold above on the daily, because as we can see, what's happened a bunch of times is it'll push above, second day, fall straight through. Push above, second day, third day, fall straight through. So it kind of it makes it a little bit challenging. So we want to hit this, and then the hard part about this is the stop loss as well. So we reject above 50, fall below 50, and then we get stopped out, which is fine because this would turn into a really solid swing trade. So I'd be comfortable if I took this, because the only reason that I wouldn't take this is because it did clear, but it did not flip positive on the AO. And so it tells me we're not quite there yet. It's getting there. It's trying. So let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Let's see. Let me know if this is valuable. Is this helpful so far? Just drop a helpful down in the comments. I know y'all like it. Let's see Dusk. And if you have any coins, just drop those down below so I can take a look at them. Dusk. Let's check it out. So daily, this one looks pretty good. I mean, we have the AO that's flipped positive here. We have the RSI that's above 50, hasn't fallen through yet, and we've cleared the daily trend. So that tells me this thing is in a great position. I mean, as a spot play, this would be an easy buy, just for, like a market buy right here, and then a stop loss like right here would put it in a really good spot to continue to ride this trend. It looks like it's above most of its resistance points. Obviously, we have this whole area of junk to clear, but the points of confluence for this pushing are aligning up quite well because it's been able to push through. It's going to come back down. We'll see if it just hits and drives or if it retests the full 50. But overall, 0.1 good, 0.2 good, 0.3 good. If I was going to long this, the only challenging thing about this is if I took the long somewhere in this area, 0.18, I'd have to set my stop somewhere down here, which is a pretty big gap. So if I was going to long this, I'd probably come back down and check the 4-hour. And I'd say, okay, well, 4 hours trending decently well right here. It's above the trend. It's cleared. It looks like it hasn't made any significant movement yet. The 4 hours a little bit choppy on the RSI. So come down to the 1 hour, see if we can fish for what a decent position would be. So I'd probably wait to see this thing come back down and retest a 4 hour, which could mean that it pushes straight through and then retests and drives. So doesn't mean that we're going to miss the trend, just means we hit the confirmation of the trend as it retests. So kind of, I would pay attention to this zone, this EMA 13 and 21, and that would give me confluence if I'm trying to leverage this. Like I said, if I was trying to spot play it, I'd be a little more comfortable just entering on what it looks like on the daily right now, maybe building a position up a little more. So entering in this zone and then buying a little more down here and then cutting it if it gets down below this. Let's see, ASTR. There it is. Okay, this one looks pretty good too. We're kind of sitting right here on this resistance zone. So a little bit of a chop zone here. Looks like it hasn't been able to hold much above that. The spot that it's been stuck at, maybe right here, it's been consolidating. So decent on the RSI. AO still isn't where I would want it to be. It's still kind of in the middle. RSI has a decent reset. So for me on this one on the daily, I'd be kind of looking for this to push with momentum, not like this, like push, fail, push, fail, push, fail, and then fall through. So that's what I would be looking for. So I'd be longing into resistance is tough. I'd probably hope it comes back down, take a long, and then ride it back up. But if I had to, I would wait to hit this above resistance, or I would wait for the trend on the 4 hour to catch up. So I would hope and pray that this is able to push and then come back down. And then we say the 4 hours like right here and like right here to be able to catch the wave, the beginning of the wave. And that'll be a good confirmation that the trend is actually complete. Because when we look at this one, when it did push through last time, it did the same thing, came back and tried to bounce off the 4 hour and then fell straight through and died. So that gives us confirmation that that trade was not going to happen. RSI fell below 50. So that's kind of what I would look at for that one. Let's see, DOT. DOT. Hold on, let me fix my mic. There we go. Okay, so DOT does not look great. 4 hour looks, it's just everything gets rejected. It has zero strength to get above any of this. RSI just completely sideways. Below that 50 though, pretty bearish. DOT does, from this point of view, doesn't look good. From the daily, still doesn't look good. RSI is flipped negative. RSI here is just failing to get above. Can't surpass that daily trend. The DOT might be a great short from this position. It just doesn't look like it's in the best position to have any sort of clean move. Even the monthly getting rejected. I mean, we can't, we rejected off here. We're rejecting off the RSI on the monthly. AO really isn't doing much, but I mean, dot would be a great short if it comes back up and tests that 8 all the way down to like that 651 weekly. Uh, I mean, the last thing we can hope and pray for is the weekly to come through and bounce. Otherwise, I'd be quite nervous to take this. It just doesn't look like it's in the best position possible. Like I said, we could hope and pray that it bounces off here, but for me, it's almost a good short opportunity. And then Phantom. All right. I have a suspicion Phantom looks like dot. Let's take a look. Well, it looks better. So Phantom doesn't have as many strong rejections. It had a little trend and then now it's just kind of starting to move sideways. We did get rejected off the 50 here. We're coming up to it again. If this is a rejection, then that's going to continue turning negative and it's Phantom's not going to do anything worthwhile. Probably comes back down and tests this to 0.35 zone. Coming back down to the 4 hour. It looks a little better on the 4 hour. Like there's hope on the 4 hour. Like we're crossing the CMA 200. We did cross the 50 and it's held above, which is good because if 4 hour holds here, then the daily would hold here. So that would make Phantom a decent position. The other good news about the 4 hour that I'm seeing here is this AO is actually flipped positive, which is a great sign because if that can flip positive, then that's going to translate to it happening on the 12 hour. As we can see, there is a bullish divergence here, and then the RSI is just above 50 here. So if this can hold and push, then that'd be a really good sign for Phantom. If it rejects and falls through, then that's obviously not good. But if the 12 hour does that, then that means the daily will probably do it too. So it would paint a much more promising picture for Phantom. So that's kind of what I would be looking at. I'd be looking for this thing to hold above. First point that I would be looking at would be for the 4 hour to be able to hold above the position. It's basically sitting on where it needs to hold. So we need it to hold on these EMA bands right here. So that zone and that zone on the 4 hour in order to hope and pray that this can hold above on the daily. This flipping positive is good. So that's what I would be looking at for it. It looks a little impulsive too, even on the 4 hour. So that's what I would be looking at for that. I would want it to hold above this zone, and then I would be confident in saying, okay, well, this is good because it's holding. And then if we see momentum, we're good. If we just see it sitting here and go sideways, probably not good. But then that would then translate to the 12 hour in a good spot. Our next point of resistance is right here, which would be a profit zone, 0.42, because then that would translate to here being able to push, and then that would translate to the daily being able to push past this part too, this 0.4191 with this whole little junk zone. And then Phantom would be in a really good spot to actually drive. So it's basically junk zone is like 0.4158 to like 0.4190. Cool. That's it. That's all the charts. Let me know if there's anything else. Just comment below and I will take a look at pretty much anything else. And we'll see if we can look at football. I don't even know what this is. Just have to ask ourselves, is this American football or is this European football? But anyway, whatever this is, it looks pretty good. AO flip positive. We're above the, wow, we're above the 50 RSI on the weekly. We've smashed through the weekly trend, which is makes it probably going to teleport to like 504. I'm gonna have to look at this before I continue talking about it, but we're above in a good spot here. It might be a good long term, even a good spot buy. I have to figure it out what it is before I make any decisions, but pretty good position. This is kind of what we look for. AO flipping positive on the weekly, like the weekly. This trade will take a long time. Just be aware of that. But AO flipping positive on the weekly, RSI crossing on the weekly. What we're hoping to and seeing is next week it continues to hold above, and then we get continuation and it can drive and push to Valhalla. The Magic. That's kind of a Magic looks good on the weekly. It had this nice little reset here. And then now it pushed back up. It's starting a new trend. It had this little sideways action for a while right here, where it just kind of chilled for a while. And now, notice how it didn't cross a weekly. If it closes the weekly up here, Magic's in a wonderful spot. That puts Magic in a good spot for a continued push and a trend up. MAV is blue skies. If I was going to try to trade MAV, I would have to go to the 4 hour and wait for this trend to catch up. Notice how we're going the parabolic, it's starting to round over. Then it'll go sideways. 4 hour will catch up, and then it'll probably be like right here where we look for to get a position in it. Pendle, same situation. Moving, wait for it to go sideways, wait for it to catch up, wait for that 4 hour trend to catch up. Probably find it like right here. Looking at that's the 4 hour, looking at the long term, really not bad. It painted a bull flag here and just pushed straight through off that bull flag. So if it closes this daily here, though, we have a divergence, which could be worrisome. In crypto, though, sometimes things can hold divergences for the rest of our lives. Root. Let's check out Root. We'll check Root out on KuCoin. Oh, let's do Bybit. Okay, so Root basically been trending. Looks like a newer coin or newer to Bybit. Looking at the daily, it's been consolidating. So it's basically been sort of stuck like right here and hasn't really been able to do much above here. Looks like we finally pushed above. Not a ton of continuation, which is a little bit worrisome. The other thing I don't like is where the RSI is. It's kind of just floating. It's not in a good position. It's not at the 50. AO's really, it's not reset. AO's not in the best position either on the daily. Come back down to the 4 hour where there's more data. Paints a little bit of a better picture. What I would be hoping on this one is we're going to break this consolidation pattern. So I would hope that this reset on the 50 continues to carry and push it through, which would translate to the other timeframes. From what I can see, it's tough to tell. I would want the AO to be reset, but so we would have point of confluence 1 here on the 4 hour that it's pushed, point of confluence 2 that it's above this trend line. So then what I would look for number 3 is I would expect or hope for continuation and then that sideways and then a push. So that way this 4 hour trend can catch up and I could grab a spot on that. Cool. Well, that's it. I think I'm all done for the evening. Hopefully this was helpful. I think on my watch list, what I'm paying attention to the most right now are kind of the ETH beta plays. If we get a good ETH push, which ETH looks pretty good today, then I would anticipate if ETH does well, then we start seeing ARB do well, LDO do well, ENS likely doing well, OP, start seeing Render, Matic, a lot of the SNX, a lot of these ETH beta plays, I think, start taking off and doing really well if ETH can actually start moving and push. So that's it. Oh, and Blur. Don't forget Blur. If ETH pushes, then ETH betas push. If ETH betas push, ETH ecosystem pushes, which means NFTs push, which means then Blur will continue to push. So that's it. If you found this helpful, just go in the dude's server and give me some fire Elmo emojis and say the stream was awesome. Let me know, give me some feedback.